What's up, guys? It's Collin from Built2Wander. I'm out here today with my beloved old Jeep, the Triton JL, and my recent 392 build. Gonna talk a little bit about the changes we made, some of the things that we learned from building the Triton JL, and how we applied those learnings to the 392 build. Things like suspension, axles, tires, armor, etc. Before we dive in, do me a quick favor, like this video, subscribe to the Driving Line channel, and let's get after it. So we've got the Triton JL and our new 392 build side by side here in the shop. And we wanted to kind of dive into both of these builds, what the differences and similarities are to each other. Back in 2019, we built the Triton JL for the SEMA Show. It was my first JL build. It was really a dream build for me. You know, a lifted Jeep on 40-inch tires, Curry 60 axles, bypass shocks, the whole nine. And I absolutely loved how this thing worked. Shortly after we got it really dialed in with the new Bilstein shock package, Jeep released the Wrangler 392 with the factory 6.4 liter Hemi, and Nitto released a 42-inch Trail Grappler. Both of those things had my attention, and all of a sudden I had the itch to build another Jeep and incorporate both of those pieces. So that's really where the 392 build kind of came from. And so I kind of wanted to just circle back to the Triton JL, talk a little bit about some of the things we learned from that build, how we incorporated those into the 392, and what differences there are between both builds. So we built the Triton JL around a 40-inch Nitto Tire Trail Grappler, and when we got this build dialed in, it did everything we wanted it to. It hit trails like Pritchett Canyon out in Moab, Utah. It did the Fallen in Sand Hollow. We took it on some rocks trails out in Johnson Valley where King of the Hammers takes place. Absolutely loved the Jeep. It was perfectly dialed in. Right there at the end of 2020, we had just started breaking this thing in, and Nitto released the 42-inch Trail Grappler. Now, I love the Trail Grappler. We've run it for years on many different builds. It's aggressive enough for the trails that we have here in our backyard in Colorado. Hooks up great on the rocks out in Johnson Valley or Moab, Utah, and it's super comfortable on road. We designed the Triton JL to be a daily driver, so highway drivability and comfortability was really important to me, and that's why we stuck with that Trail Grappler on this build. When Nitto came out with that 42, kind of pushed the envelope, and it really excited me and made me want to build something on a 42. And at first, I thought, let's just add it to Triton. You know, the suspension's adjustable, we have coilovers, we could add a little bit of height, and probably make a few tweaks and run a 42 with this build. But the only concern I had was that it was the 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo motor, and I felt like we'd really be taxing the drivetrain with that heavier, bigger 42-inch tire. Well, coincidentally, at that same exact time, Jeep released the Wrangler 392, which for the first time had a factory-integrated 6.4-liter V8 Hemi motor, and everything started clicking, and I felt like the V8 had enough power to really support that 42-inch tire. And that's kind of when this idea of building a 392 Wrangler was born, and hence our Built2Wander 392. So on the Triton JL, we worked with Bilstein shock absorbers to come up with a really cool shock package. So they helped us basically put together their 9200 series triple bypass and their 9200 series coilover up front. And then we ran that same coilover with a hydraulic bump stop in the rear. In doing so, we had about 4 inches of up travel in the front, about 5.5 inches of up travel in the rear with 3D off-roads, suspension brackets. We took this thing out to Johnson Valley for King of the Hammers in 2021, hit some of those faster desert sections, went through some whoops, had a blast, but found that a little bit more up travel would make this thing just that much more comfortable. And so when it came down to building the 392, that was one of those areas where we were able to learn a few things and do something slightly different. And what we did was, instead of doing coilovers on all 4 corners, we decided to just do bypass shocks only on all 4 corners, and we still put a hydraulic bump stop in the rear, but that allowed us to stick with that stock coil spring suspension. We did upgrade the coils. We went to a 4.5-inch rock crawler spring to get enough lift to run the 42. But what that allowed us to do was have that adjustability that we had in the front of Triton, but get a little bit more up travel. So on the 392, we've got actually about 5 inches of up travel on the front, 5.5 to 6 inches of up travel in the rear. And all that does is make the suspension that much more comfortable in those faster sections, day-to-day on road. And so that was one of the areas we improved. The other was knowing that we like to go fast off-road. You know, the Triton JL is just your traditional long arm, 4-link in the rear. And when the suspension cycles, the axle actually swings because it's got a rear track bar that keeps that axle underneath the Jeep. On the 392, we did a double triangulated rear suspension kit from Motobilt that ditches the rear track bar and it keeps the rear axle perfectly centered under the Jeep as the suspension cycles, which makes it a little bit more predictable at higher speeds and more comfortable in my mind as well. So lastly, one of the other differences that we made was armor. So on the Triton JL, we have Hefty Fabworks front and rear bumpers. They're made locally here in Colorado Springs, and really happy with these bumpers. They've held up to off-road abuse. They have very clean lines. They hold these Baja Designs lighting, the worn winch really nicely. But on the 392, we just wanted to change things up. We wanted it to look a little different, so we went with Motobilt's frame chop Tomahawk front bumper. We're running Motobilt's rear bumper as well. We still have a set of LP6 lights from Baja Design. We've got the worn winch and Factor 55 recovery equipment. But the bumper is a little bit tighter to the body. It's that frame chop. It's a little thinner than the grill width. So you can see this Hefty Fabworks just a little wider. Just, I think, a little bit more aggressive look, a little higher clearance, slightly improved approach angles. The other difference is on the Triton JL, we stuck with the factory fenders and we ran American Adventure Lab Highline LED lights in the fenders. Plenty of clearance there for the 40-inch tire. The suspension was set up so at full flex it won't get into the fenders. On the 392, knowing that we were stepping up to that 42-inch tire, I wanted to open things up a bit, so we ran Motobilt steel fenders. A little bit heavier than the plastic, but overall, again, more aggressive look. I think they're gonna hold up really well to any abuse on trail and gives us enough clearance for that 42-inch tire. One of the last differences is on Triton, we've got some Casey Curry rock sliders. They bolt onto the frame. If you hit them hard enough on the rocks, they will flex into the body and could potentially create some damage in that rocker panel. So on the 392, we went with Motobilt's weld-on frame-mounted rockers. So these sliders are just a bit stronger. You know, if you get between a rock and a hard place, they're not gonna flex into the body. We also added a set of rocker panel guards, which are basically a steel plate to protect that rocker panel from any damage. So just a little bit stronger setup on the sides there. We really do plan to push this thing off-road, get into some technical trails where that's a possibility. But the biggest reason for the different armor was to kind of change up the look. And so far, really stoked with how the Motobilt stuff came out. High quality, built really well right here in the USA, but still partial to the Hefty Fabworks stuff. Love how this fits the Triton build and wouldn't have done either one of them any different way. So with me today is Ryan Jensen. Ryan lives here locally in Colorado and actually purchased the Triton JL from me back in 2021. So what, it's been about a year and a half now. You've had the Jeep. You've had some time to go wheeling. You've driven it around. What are your thoughts so far on the Triton JL?
So Triton JL has been exactly what I wanted in a Jeep. It was built right. It's performed really above my expectation in almost every area. We made a few minor refinements as I've used over the last year and a half. It's been all over Colorado. It's been all through Chinaman, so Buena Vista area. We did the Rubicon Trail last summer.
Yeah, we had a great time on the Rubicon. It was awesome to see this thing out there. And honestly, one of my favorite things is one, how well you've kept up with the vehicle, and really how original it looks. Visually, it's almost identical to how it was when I sold it to you and when we finished the build. But I know you mentioned you've made some improvements. So can you kind of walk us through the few things you've done to this to make it even better?
So like you said, I didn't want to change it. I really love how it was. It didn't need any visual or aesthetic changes. It was lacking a few minor things. The major one is it didn't have any skid plates, so it got a full belly skid plate system from Next Venture Motorsports. The other thing we did was we did an Atlas transfer case, and while that was underway, the 2-liter factory engine was left a little something to be desired. So we also did a 6.4 Hemi swap from America's Most Wanted 4x4 installed by Matt Thompson of 3D Off-Road.
It's hilarious that you did that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome. Definitely something that Triton needed, but it's just funny because I got rid of this in search of a Jeep with a V8, and here you end up doing it to it. And I think it's awesome. I don't think that there's anything else that could make this Jeep any better at this point. I love that you kind of went to those areas that did need some improvement. I agree with the skid plates, with that T-case, with the Atlas, and then the Hemi V8. It's so hard to beat that 6.4.
Yeah.
So what's next for the Jeep, at least as far as adventures go, trail runs, or any other improvements that you plan on making?
So next up for trail runs is Moab around Easter, and then full summer wheeling around here in Colorado, and hopefully back to California and some other bigger trips in the summer. Improvement wise, really just going to be fine tuning and refining. The Jeep is really set how I want it at this point.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to hitting the trail together this summer. That's one of the best parts about having a ride here locally in Colorado. I get to visit with my old girl from time to time, and it's awesome just seeing this Jeep again, and stoked for the adventures we'll have, and can't wait to put these two builds to the test off-road together.
Bought a Jeep and got a friend.
There you go. Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. So there you have it, guys, the progression from the Triton JL to the new BB392. Super stoked on really how both of these builds came together. I'm stoked that Ryan, the new owner of Triton, lives here locally in Colorado, and I can't wait to get out this summer, hit the trail with Triton, and enjoy some adventure together in both of these Jeeps. Drop me a comment below. Let me know what you think of the lessons learned, some of the changes we made to the 392. And as always, hit the like button if you did, and subscribe if you haven't. Until next time, wander on.
Thanks for watching Driving Line. If you guys like this video, consider subscribing to our channel so you'll never miss any of the content we create here. Whether you're into trucks, Jeeps, imports, domestic vehicles, or anything in between, we are here to fuel your passion. So hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys next time.